So it happened again. Kumo goes on and on about his litany of me with this bad news, and I shouldn't be sharing all this market data about crossovers with you people, and now I should go out, find some good news, something interesting to share. So once again, I got kicked out of my own house, and here I am in the middle of a field with a lot of grapes. But I come prepared because I found some interesting, market data as well as some good news. And it dawned on me, who is buying a 911? Because that's the better part of 100,000 US, especially those fancy ones like the GT3s, those are 160, 180. Well, I spoke to my friends at Porsche, and they're telling me that the average income of the person who buys a 911 is 600,000 US. So then I'm thinking to myself, well, who's buying a 718? Well, I asked them again, and they're telling me, well, it's exactly half, 300,000 US average income. So then I start scratching my head confused. I'm like, well, then why do you have a GTS? Because we've seen in previous episodes that GTSs are like the value version of Porsche. More stuff for less money, which I'm a Costco cheapskate, man. I love me more stuff for less money. And then I took a page out of Kumo's book and stopped looking the gift horse in the mouth and say, hey, we got a new Porsche. Let's just do the kind thing and go and drive it. Okay, here we are, back in the saddle again, 718 Boxster. And if you can tell by the roads, at least two things are different. Number one, change the location up, no longer in the great state of Texas. Instead, location is in Napa County, California. And number two, this is not a serial production Boxster. No, this is something special. This is not an S, it is a GTS. Oh, look, we've got a visitor. Look at this. It's so special, Mr. Deer wanted to come out. How often do we get this? Where you get wildlife is so excited by the car, probably the color in this case. I think he likes the chalk. Bye, buddy. Okay, there you go. I think episode over, man. When wildlife comes on and says hello to the car, obviously this is a special car. But for you and I, it means more power. So let's put our foot into it. And yeah, this has a little bit more power that we talked about in the tech review. It's not a fire-breathing amount more. It does deliver more torque. But the thing you really notice after spending, I want to say, probably a couple hours now driving it on roads like this, someone has taken the torque curve and just stepped on it. That's the difference. The thing you notice, okay, here I am in second gear, I'm coming around downhill, trying to disturb the plane of motion, but we've got a nice dip here, put our foot into it, stay in the gear, and this is a B4, people. Inherently, these are not torquey engines, and the thing you notice immediately is you've got torque at more points in the power band. Like, I can stay in one gear, or I can start working the gears more and get power pretty much anywhere I want. That's really the big difference between this engine and the base engine. It's not a car that's going to rip your face off, kind of like that GT3 or a Turbo S. But wow, it's so much more fulfilling, and you wouldn't think that little of a difference would make that much real world difference on the road. So in the tech review, I shared with you a number of the cosmetic changes on the inside of a GTS, whether it be a Boxster or a Cayman. Well, surprise of all surprises, there are changes on the outside as well, and it's not just the wheels, but we will consider those cosmetic in this episode. The biggest change, the front and rear aprons. Now, the front is probably the bigger of the two because it's not just a cosmetic change, there's a functional change as well. Yes, there's more opening for air, and it's a deeper spoiler in the front, but they add an additional radiator. So not an additional intercooler, it's the same number, and this is the S, but the radiator is additional. And kind of the same theme as the driving dynamic stuff, it can be fitted to a base and an S with extra money. So it's not specific to a GTS, it's just standard on a GTS. Then the lights change, both front and rear, bi-xenons in the front, but then the tinting changes to a very cool gray. I kind of like that touch. And then all of the trim, where it says Boxster or Cayman, GTS, that's all black. And then last, but certainly not least, on the door it says GTS, like you needed the reminder of a GTS. Okay, as we go through the forest here, I'm expecting more wildlife to come out. Perhaps Winnie the Pooh or Tigger. And while we wait, I don't have much to tell you about driving dynamics. Usually I do, but we've kind of driven this setup. You remember that $95,000 Cayman that we drove in Texas? Let me repeat that, 95 grand. That had the same setup as this. You see, GTSs, they're more value than they are like, oh my God, there's things you can't get in other cars. Yeah, this power you can't get in the basic car. But the suspension setup, you can option out a Cayman or a GTS with this suspension system. It's just that it's standard in a GTS. So the car we drove in Texas, that's kind of the same experience here. So I'm here to tell you, it's good. Okay, so I indeed promised you that we would go through how well this specific car is equipped. Serial number ending 855, and it ain't just the color. So let's start. 2018 718 Boxster GTS. I guess I got that wrong when I said it was a 2019. That is a base price of $81,900 US. Then add to that the lovely shade of chalk for $2,580. The Roadster top in black is $0. Just as an aside, that can be black, red, blue, or gray, all $0. That's part of the GTS deal. The leather Alcantara interior in black and chalk, $2,160. The tachometer dial in chalk, that's to match this color here, that is $0. And just as an aside again, let's say the car was red, that tachometer would be red. So that's let's just say the value package. Then there is the GTS interior package, $3,690. Something rather important because it adds more Alcantara, leather on the door panels, the dash, as well as the cross stitch that's in chalk. In this case, again, can be red if it was a red car. Then the sport suspension added to the PASM. This is quite a bargain, $290. Seat heating, $530. Need that in a convertible. Luggage net for the passenger footwell, $0. Smoking package, $0. Don't think I'd want that. The navigation module for the Porsche computer, $1,780. I don't think you need that because CarPlay is fitted to these things now. But then again, if you go off the grid, you need the navigation in the car. So it's kind of a push. And then last but not least, Porsche Connect Plus, which is a 12-month trial at $1,720. Add to that delivery, processing, and handling fee of $1,050. Brings this car to exactly the same price as that Cayman S we drove in Texas for $95,700 US. If there is such a thing as value in the Porsche world, this is it. But here's the thing when it comes to in practice. I showed you the interior in the tech review, but when you're spending time with it, which now I've spent a lot of time with it, it's so much more pleasant of a place to be because it's got the extended leather, but then again, it doesn't. You see that GTS package that I told you about, which gives you the suede here, also extends the leather to the top of the door panels and the top of the dash, which make you realize this ain't a bargain basement Boxster. Put aside the power and the tweaks, I think that's kind of what the GTS is about, at least for your daily. Then there's something very important we need to discuss. And you know what? We should probably downshift again. Are you ready? I'm gonna put my foot into it. It's that sound, man. I know when we first drove this in the Cayman in Texas, I told you, I gotta think about it. I gotta let it marinate. Do I like the sound? Do I not like the sound? Now I've spent more time in this thing, and yes, this one is fitted with the sport exhaust as standard. But, and I'm deliberately keeping in this lower gear for you so you can hear it, I just do not love the sound. And inherently, when you have a flat four, it's just gonna sound like a lawnmower or a Subaru. And I don't care what exhaust you put in it, it just has that sound. And that is the only thing I do not like about this. Other than that, this is such a magical car to drive. There is so much fun. And here's a little bit of inside baseball, which I usually don't share with you. The manufacturers, they give you these drive routes. And here they had this drive route from the hotel out to the coast and back. And it's lovely, but I found this road and all I've been doing is it's like a 10-mile stretch of just this. And the entire day has been this ridiculous smile on my face because of really how good the driving dynamics are here. And yes, it's not specifically different than a well-optioned basic car, but it's kind of like a Mazda 3 in that instance. You forget how good that car is, but then when you get behind the wheel, you're like, oh my God, this thing is unusually good. And that's effectively what this thing has done with me today. It's reminded me like, oh my God, Porsche isn't just a GT3 company. So, huge surprise here. It's better, and more so than the differences on paper would suggest. There you have it. We're done. Oh, and the differences between the S and the GTS, if you were to build an S the same way as a GTS, it will be more money, which would suggest the GTS is cheaper. But really, in the Porsche world, is there such a thing as cheaper? I think not. So the term would be better value, and all kidding aside, it really is a better value. So indeed, it's better and a better value. We're done. Kumo says I have to talk to you for a couple more minutes. Okay, fine. Chalk highly suggests this color, especially on a Panamera Sport Turismo. Okay, now we're done. Kumo says I'm not done. Okay, fine. While I got you here, I'm going to say it. These Porsche people are pissing me off. And it's not just because I'm a Lotus guy, it's because I'm confused. We went and we drove the basic Boxster and the basic Cayman, and it was really good, like a really good scalpel. Granted, didn't like the way it sounded, but wow, was it good. Then they said, come and drive the S. And surprise of surprises, that one was a better scalpel. Still didn't like the way it sounded. Then they call and they say, come drive the GTS. And here we are again, better scalpel. I would argue better than two of them put together. So I'm sitting here and like, why does the S exist? And it can't be just me, because you look at it, I get it. The basic car, there is a price difference between that and a GTS. So fine, those two should exist. But why does the S exist? And maybe it is because I'm a Lotus guy and I'm a cheapskate, but really, the GTS, it's a proper thing. Well, until obviously a GT4 and a Boxster 718 Spider comes along, then we're gonna fall in love with that and we gotta have that one. But you see what I'm getting at. For us mere mortals of sports cars, I don't get it. So I'm gonna turn it around to you. Should the S exist or not? And give me a why or why not. And for good measure, let me know if you own a Boxster or a Cayman and which derivation is it. Let me know in the comments below or via our social media. MotoManTV all one word, MotoManTV all one word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, I really am done. So you know what? Kumo and I are going to go for a ride in this. Until we see you next time, bis später.